However, in relation, when we try to correlate this type of dental treatments with technical diving, what matters is when we use temporary cements to stabilize temporary restorations, particularly if we are planning on doing some complex technical dives and breathing gas mixtures that do contain helium, we should be aware that according to research and studies published, helium, because of the very low density of its molecules, it's highly likely to penetrate this temporary layer of cement.
Right.
And potentially dislodge these temporary restorations inside our mouth when we are underwater.
Yep.
So I would like everyone that is hearing this podcast, that if you're undergoing any type of treatment that your dentist tells you, okay, you have a temporary cap or temporary veneers placed on top of your teeth. This will take just a week, So today is Monday. Next Monday, you'll have your ceramics bonded, and then 24 hours after, you're good to go. However, during that weekend, in between those 2 Mondays, well, maybe it might be advisable not to dive, particularly if you're breathing gas mixtures that contain helium, because these low density molecules, they will penetrate the layer of temporary cement way easier, and they can dislodge the restorations. And then let's imagine that something happens.
You're listening to Speaking Sidemount, the podcast where we talk all things sidemount and cave diving, from equipment, skills, techniques, and cave diving expeditions to interviews with some of the world's top sidemount and cave divers. Whether you're new to sidemount, been sidemount diving for years, or just want to know more, this is the place for all things sidemount. I'm your host, Steve Davis. Let's get wet. Hey, welcome back to Speaking Sidemount. I'm Steve Davis. This episode is brought to you by our sponsor XDEEP and by the patrons of Speaking Sidemount. Huge thanks to both for their support that makes everything you're about to watch and listen to possible. Look out for the XDEEP Exploration Support Program mid-roll in this episode. Now today I catch up and meet Anna Gonçalves. Anna is a prosthodontist, more on that later, and she hails from Portugal. She's a sidemount diver and KISS Sidewinder Rebreather diver, and is a DAN Europe representative and a DAN diving medical officer for Dentistry. Now in this episode, Anna and I get into how she started in diving, how and why sidemount became her preferred dive configuration, her path to sidemount rebreather diving on the KISS Sidewinder. We talk about her local diving and favorite dive sites in Portugal, a little on the Portuguese caves, and then we get into how Anna is combining her career in dentistry with diving. We talk on her work with DAN Europe, how DAN can support with dental issues and emergencies. We discuss the likely causes of a tooth squeeze, mouthpiece considerations, diving while undergoing dental treatment, when it's okay to dive, and when it might be better to stay out of the water. We talk about the risks while you have temporary restorations, particularly using mixed gases, including helium. And then we talk about medications and dive safety. Lastly, we learn a little bit about Anna's next steps into the world of hyperbaric medicine. Now, before we go on, a quick shout out about my Sidemount Fundamentals ebook. This book is the manual for my Sidemount Fundamentals course, and it covers everything from why you would want to dive sidemount, sidemount equipment selection and fitting it to your body, getting in and out of the water, and all of the sidemount skills that we teach on our Sidemount Fundamentals course. It's inexpensive, and I'm sure it will help your sidemount diving. So look out for that again on the Sidemount Pros website at www.sidemountpros.com/store. So let's get on with this episode of Speaking Sidemount. And we are recording. Hey, Anna, welcome to Speaking Sidemount.
Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure for me as well. And you and I have chatted a few times online, so it's great to meet you in person. And I'm excited today to get to know you a little bit more, but also to learn a little bit about your background in dentistry and how you're applying dentistry in scuba diving, and in particular in side mount and cave diving as well. So a lot to cover there, and I think some really new ground for us. As you know, I've had Professor Simon Mitchell on before, and we've spoken about diving medicine quite a bit, which was exciting, I think, for all of us who are technical divers. But dentistry, I think, doesn't get a lot of airplay in terms of diving. And I think anyone who's had a tooth squeeze knows how important it could be for us. So great to have you on. And I'm really excited to get into this. But you know how we start this podcast. Every time I ask my guests to tell us a little bit about your background and also how you got into diving.
Well, Steve, we can say that it started relatively recently. It started 4 years ago when I booked a trip to Cyprus. It's not a very common destination for Portuguese because we don't have direct flights there. However, it is indeed close. So I decided to give it a try. I didn't have many friends who could give me like nice tips of what to do there, what to visit, but fortunately, well, I'm a millennial, so I do have internet and all the technology by my side since my early teens. So I went on a search, and
Yes.
while exploring things to do in Cyprus on TripAdvisor, I kept on crossing with try scuba diving, try scuba diving, try scuba diving. And I had this
Yeah.
idea that diving is something boring for lazy people because you're just there, everything is slow, something that it couldn't be exciting. However, well, what really convinced me was a nice photo of clear waters and a sea turtle. I looked at it, and my first thought was, well, I do love turtles, so let's check the turtles out. I signed up for a try scuba diving.
Brilliant.
When I got there, two friends were with me. They were a little unsure about if to join me or not. Eventually, they did. There we went. At that situation, in this dive center, they didn't have a pool. So after the theoretical part, we went straight for a shore dive. We had access to the water through a beach in the area of Protaras. And I mean, there wasn't much life. It wasn't the type of dive that currently I would find memorable, but I think so many people have this type of report on their first diving experiences. But it was life-changing for me. When it finished, the instructor just asked me, "So, what do you think?" And I just said, "When can I try this again?" And he said,
Brilliant.
"Well, actually, you could do it tomorrow, but I'm so sad that you don't have enough days left here in Cyprus to do the course. And well, you must do the course so you can dive everywhere, so many different places, and see other things than Cyprus sea turtles." And I said, "Wow."
Yeah.
A course, and he said, "Oh well, that's a whole world, so you have your entire lifetime to enjoy."
Brilliant.
I was hooked. I went back to Portugal, and then in shortly 2 months after I came back, I was set up with an instructor through a friend, and I did open water, nitrox, and deep diving in the space of 3 months. I don't consider it extremely quick, but in my case, because I was working during the week, I only had weekends to be able to study the theoretical part and to do my dives. And I think it was kind of good, in fact, that it was too much of too quick, like some scuba diving
Sure.
courses that they take from like 3 to 5 days, everything too compact and too quick. It felt like something, a little passion growing slowly, kind of a love affair. It starts with a little seed, and then you see some little leaves growing, and then flowers, and all of that. So,
I love the way you describe that. It makes me think back to my own course, because back in the old days when I started, it was actually very similar. We used to do the courses over between 3 and 4 weekends with a couple of nights where you do the theory. And it was before the days of online training and all that sort of thing. So I remember it really well. I was a young apprentice in the Navy, and it was so exciting for me to be able to work and then go to these night classes and then go for the dives on successive weekends. So yeah, I know exactly the feel that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was already lucky enough, I would say, to have the e-learning part, but I also
Mm-hmm.
had the chance of having live theory, which I find extremely important. I think it's completely different to be with
Yes.
an instructor for the theoretical parts and to be live. It's totally different.
Brilliant. So you started out doing your open water course, caught the bug in Cyprus, and I know what you mean, having dived in Malta, the Mediterranean, beautiful clear water, which I think is a huge advantage when you get started. Although, often, sometimes here in New Zealand, the viz can be amazing, but it can also be quite low as well. So sometimes learning in low viz can be an advantage as well. But regardless, there's not often a lot of sea life there. Going back to Portugal, I've heard a lot about Portuguese diving through following dive talks, and I'm sure it's amazing there. How did you then go from your initial training in Portugal and then grow your diving there?
I consider myself very fortunate that since my early days as open water diver, that I was exposed to a lot of good protocol. Even my instructor for the entry levels as recreational diver, she was super strict, and also she was a lot into their protocol, and she had GOE fundies. So since the beginning,
Right.
for me, it was super common to have all of these, let's say, more into technical diving habits, and because of the conditions we have
Yes.
here, Atlantic Ocean is kind of moody a little bit. Like you get there,
Yes.
you do have cold water. Our water temperatures go from 13 to 19 Celsius, like winter to summer. It can
Mm-hmm.
go even less if you go to fresh water, very deep caves, or at the quarry. Can go 11, 8 Celsius. Also, currents, and let's consider it average viz, not great
Yeah.
visibility. So we go really early when we want to do diving as a regular hobby. It's natural for most of us to go into Drysuit, a wing, and just to make things as safe, comfortable, practical as possible. So in terms of proceeding towards technical training, it becomes a little more natural since the beginning. I didn't even buy a wetsuit after I finished my open water and nitrox. I was just looking at everyone on the boat, and I was feeling so. Because after
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes of diving, I was hardly able to perform some of the skills underwater because I would lose like the use of my
Mm-hmm.
fingers. So I just, when I finished
Sure.
I certified open water, I just looked at my instructor and said, "So, that thing you're wearing, does it keep you really warm and dry?" And she laughed and said, "Well, if it's a good one, if you take good care of it, it will.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you need to
Mm-hmm.
wear the right type of clothes underneath. And yeah, if I want, I
Mm-hmm.
can dress like Santa Claus under it. When I finish diving, I just remove the thing, and I'm ready to go play Santa Claus. But be prepared to save some money because to get a decent one, just at least a 2K." And then I was all
Yeah.
right. I can see, but well, I went for it. I got the money. I bought it. I
Yeah.
got trained for it, and I could dive
Yeah.
every weekend, all year round. It's really the only way here, Steve.
Yeah. Look, I can absolutely relate to that. And it's funny you talk about the water temperatures, 13 to 19 Celsius. And excuse me if I can't convert that to Fahrenheit in my head, but it's fairly, 13 is pretty cold, and 19 is actually starting, 20 starting to get reasonably warm. You could probably just dive a wetsuit in that. But that's very similar to the north of New Zealand here. Like we probably go from 14, 15 to 20, 21 in the summer. And yeah, I dive pretty much dry all year round now, so I've become very soft. And getting a dry suit in these sort of conditions just changes your life. All of a sudden, your dive durations extend. You're not cold anymore. You enjoy it so much more than when you're in a wetsuit. So yeah, no doubt I can absolutely relate to that. Also, like a story from the Atlantic as well. I picked up a ship from the UK. I won't tell you how long ago. It was a very, very long time ago. Bringing it back from the UK to New Zealand, we went to the Azores, which is an island off the coast of Portugal, part of Portugal, and we had to go through a force 10 storm in the Bay of Biscay. That was just, I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. The waves were higher than the main mast of the ship, and yeah, it was such an experience to go through that storm. So I know exactly what the Atlantic can be like. And I can only imagine how that affects diving conditions. Again, we have the same thing here. It's winter here right now, and it's quite difficult to get out diving at the moment because of various weather conditions. So let's move on a little bit. So you've started diving. You're now in a dry suit. You've done nitrox. You've done deep. And how did you get into side mount diving?
Oh well, Sidemount for me it showed up as a need and as a will. I mean, where there's a will, and if you really wish something, you gotta
There's a
make it
way, yes.
happen. Yes, yes, exactly. So here at home, there is a very special place. I call it my wreck from home. It's a shipwreck called Rebreather, and it was a Nigerian cargo wreck that sunk in 1989, year of birth. And what happened was there is some mystery around the tragedy itself. Some people do suspect that they carried illegal goods, and that's why they took so long to report the incident to the Coast Guard. People do have these theories that they took time to move the cargo with some smaller boats, and then when they called for help, it was already too late to salvage the ship. So with the water going inside, it broke in half, Titanic style, a little bit, and then it sank in like it's two parts. One is at approximately 25 meters depth, and the other one approximately 30. And this is a very famous dive spot that you can reach from Sesimbra port, which is a coastal village 40 minutes away from Lisbon. So most of Portuguese divers do go there relatively often to dive if they practice diving as a regular hobby. And the first few times I went there, I was just a little, well, curious and at the same time frustrated that most divers were just circling the shipwreck, not going inside of it. And I could clearly stick my flashlight there and see that there was some spaces where I could surely fit in, others I couldn't. But if I would stick my head inside, I could see that down in there was more space, and I wanted to go there. But with the back mount, I couldn't. And I think it was the third or fourth time I was there, still diving single tank, and then I find one of the places and I stick myself inside. I was like halfway, and then I feel one of my fins being pulled out, and my buddy's looking at me with these huge eyes and saying like, no, no. And I was like, okay. When we went up back at the boat, my buddy said, look, eventually one day you'll go inside one of those special areas on the wreck. Just beware that you need to train more. And with me, you're not doing that because I don't do overhead stuff. And if you get trapped in there, I will unable to pull you out. So, and don't forget that this is not a wreck. And then I went online searching lots of this, that there is a big difference
Mm-hmm.
between a tragically sunk wreck, a shipwreck, and a
Yes.
a wreck that is prepared to serve as an artificial reef and prepared for penetration
Yes.
by divers. So found lots of stuff
Mm-hmm.
online about it, and also eventually when you search about wreck diving, and because of the type of specific training and qualifications and experience and gear you must have to do safe wreck diving, eventually cave diving shows up. Well, then
Mm-hmm.
it builds up, builds up, builds up. And then I see some very interesting photos of these people with tanks on the sides of their bodies, tanks being pulled out, people going inside very tight, very interesting places, thanks to Sidemount. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, this could totally work for me. I think I want to do this. But
Mm-hmm.
then at home, I didn't have that much of a, let's say, of a push, of an incentive from the community around,
Mm-hmm.
because let's face it, it's open water. There is not an absolute
Mm-hmm.
need to be a very proficient side mount diver, because you can access most of the sites, enjoy beautiful reef diving, go really deep into some technical diving spots, and you can spend your entire lifetime doing this and feeling fulfilled without having to dive side mount a single time in your life. But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a little
Sure.
more to start, and I one thing I knew for sure, which was I need to increase my skills. I need to feel super safe, super comfortable, and I will go classic. I'll do the classic path. So I signed up. I
Mm-hmm.
waited to until I reached 100 plus dives. I was already feeling extremely comfortable. I did some traveling to experience some diving abroad. I went to Malta for the first time. I went to Maldives on a liveaboard, and then I was diving almost every weekend. And I signed up for an extended range night rocks with twin set course.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this was my entry level into technical training, and it was good, but at the same time it wasn't. I felt it was kind of a hassle for me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
let's be realistic. The good part underwater, to feel a twin set in my back, I do feel a very good trim and stability.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing compared with the single tank.
Sure.
And I felt super safe because
Mm-hmm.
of over the redundancy and all, and the fact that I could stay there longer, go deeper. So that was all very, very good. But all the behind the scenes thing on the twin set, it wasn't working for me. So it was too heavy for me to carry without feeling back pain in the dive site. And also, my car got
Mm-hmm.
some pretty nasty marks because I was unable, I don't have a truck or a big van. So it's not easy for me to move the twin set inside and outside of the car without help. And I am a girl, yes,
Sure.
at the dive center. I always have a help. Someone volunteers to help me taking the twin set out of my car and putting it back in. That's all good. But I really wanted my independence back. And I couldn't forget these amazing photos and videos of people being able to go into those really tight spaces where I really wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then my search
Fair
for the,
enough.
yeah. So I was searching for a good side mount instruction close to me. I did have kind of an interview with an instructor. However, I was already listening to your podcast at the time, and I was reading a lot. So one of the things I do remember and will never forget is totally different to learn side mount from someone who dives side mount every single day and who is an explorer and who needs to use Sidemount not only as a tool, but also because it's its favorite configuration. It's completely different to learn from someone that is considered an expert in this specific type of diving from someone that actually is certified to teach it, but doesn't do it very often because
Yes.
there isn't the need. So this was one of the major factors that pushed me to go search for a side mount training outside of my country. And it all started on me and my partner. Every year we try to go on a long, let's say, 2 weeks. It's not a very long vacation, but it's the maximum so far that I can take off work without being too long away from my patients. And it's complicated. So I gave him a choice. I already had Mexico in my mind, but I gave him a choice. I decided to put a little bit at chance, like random. If it has to be, it will be. And I told him, look, this year, choose. We can go Mexico, Curacao, or Philippines. And he chose Mexico. I was like, it's destiny. This is happening. Yeah. And
That's awesome.
so that was it. When I went there, it wasn't a diving vacation. We wanted to do other things, of course, and I didn't have many days to dive. So I reached out to the cave. I like to call them the Cave Diving Dream Factory, also known as Protect. So where dreams are made of. So I reached out to Protect and I explained that I would wish to pursue side mount training to be able to dive caves someday, to access difficult places in some specific wrecks at home. And I said, I might not have time for a full certification, but I would love to give it a try if you're available to take me. And they said, yes, we could do no certification, of course, but we could do a workshop, a half-day workshop, during which I would be introduced to the configuration, give it a try in the water, have a wing set up for me, learn the basics on how to rig the tanks, hose, all of that. That sounds very good to me. So I decided to go for it. Plus, I went a little crazier that time. I mean, many conversations with friends and my buddy, Rui. He's an underwater photographer and he's a full CCR, hypoxic, 100 meters, you name it. And most of my photos on my social underwater are taken by him. Thank you, Rui, if you're listening. My favorite photographer. He, even on not very long diving sessions, he would take his rebreather. He has a mag to allow him to be closer to marine life and take like photos and enjoying to be deeper and longer. So I was already very used to see him on a rebreather. And talking to some other friends that are participating, speleologists and experienced cave divers that do dive the caves here in Portugal. So they told me, if based on your level of interest and the experience you're building, if one day and if you keep on being interested on cave diving, and one day maybe you can help us in our cave exploration projects here in Portugal. And do have this in mind, that if you keep on doing this the way you're doing, for sure rebreathers will show up eventually. And you will want or will need to dive one. And I knew a little bit about rebreather diving already, not a lot, but sure, because of all the searches I've made and because I reached out to Protect, they are the Sidewinder house.
Definitely.
So I was crazy enough to dare to ask the Protect if besides a side mount workshop, if it would be possible to try a Sidewinder.
Hmm.
And I was totally down to earth and expecting them to say no. If they would say no, there's no way, you didn't even dive side mount yet, it would be too much for you. I would just say, okay, sure, do it next time, later,
Hmm.
doesn't matter, no stress. But well, they are called by me Dream Factory, right? So
Yes. I like it.
they made it happen. They
Right.
just warned me severely, very strongly on, look, beware that this might be extremely intensive. It will be a very long day. And despite we will do our best for you to have a great experience, you might absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
You might hate it. And as long as you're aware of this possibility and you keep your mind open to this, then we are good to go on our side. We will set you up with a
Awesome.
very good instructor and you can have the experience if you want. It's going to be a great and very intense day. And I thought, well, yeah, if I hate it, it is possible. I do know of
Yeah.
some people that tried it and hated it, but what about if I love it?
There is that.
Mean, I couldn't pass out the opportunity. I was there, and they said yes. So, okay, let's make it happen. They set me up a full intensive day with Skanda. Skanda helped me. We basic theory, setting up the wing for me, learning about how to rig the tanks, the bungee, floating loops, all of it. On my side, I decided to prepare ahead of the trip,
Hmm.
doing the e-learning TDI for a side mount diver. So when I
Yes.
got there, I already knew a little bit in terms of the basic theory. I knew just the basics, and I mean, side mount is a constant search for perfection. And
Hmm.
it was just the basics, but it helped me went through the session faster with Skanda. And then in the afternoon, we tried the Sidewinder. And I remember we went to a cenote called, I think, Chicken Hut.
Yes.
And I, I felt a little overwhelmed, but I gave it a try. He's an amazing instructor, super
Mm.
patient, super calm. And after I did my first short dive, I was underwater with the unit for about, I would say, not sure. I mean, time goes by in a really strange way when you're on a rebreather, especially in the first time.
Yes. Yes.
When we came back up, he asked, "So, how did you feel?" It was hard for me to put it in simple words. I was a little bit of speechless, but I just told him I felt like if I was in space. And he looked at me very serious. That sounds like a good thing, yes? And then I started laughing. Yes, it's a good thing. And he's like, oh, there you go.
Oh man, what an experience! I imagine that could be a first, even for Skanda, who's super experienced, and to take someone who is I mean, you're 100 dives in then, so you're sort of experienced in back mount, but to not really be a side mount diver and to go straight onto the Sidewinder and what is effectively your first side mount experience, and I can understand 100% how they would say you might not like this because you can imagine, especially in shallow water, it's not that easy to dive a rebreather, is it? And so as a complete beginner, to go into a cenote and have a swim around and be managing your gas spaces on the rebreather and managing your PPO2 and all of the task loading that goes with that. It's pretty cool. I love the courage that you show. I think that's just epic in terms of your desire to have a crack at it, as we would say, and give it a go. And I can imagine the look on Skanda's face. It would have been really awesome to see that.
Indeed, yeah. So when I was very much interested on proceeding with
Hmm.
my my training. Then when I went back to Portugal, I was just preparing myself and thinking, well, how can I do this in such a way that I'm able to book another trip to Mexico in the end of the same year and be able to take a mod 1. I would need to build lots of open circuit side mount experience before that, so I could be super comfortable with the side mount diving before I can put a Sidewinder on top of it for an intensive seven day mod 1 course. But that's what I did.
Amazing, amazing. So you went
Yeah.
back to Portugal after that and just started diving side mount, bought the gear, and
I bought
or
the
did
gear based on the instruction I had during the workshop. Eventually, I found a different side mount instructor
mm-hmm.
with who I had an interview with, and our mindsets matched pretty well. I decided to do the side mount course with him. I already had 10 or 15 side mount dives before I did the certification. This is the reality. I'm not gonna lie, and I do feel that it was good for me because when I did the course with him, I already had lots of more precise, specific questions based on the
Yes.
experiences I had. So I
Yes.
was able to take a little more from the sessions, from the diving sessions. I think it was indeed, let's say, people might think, oh, that's a lot of extra work because you were searching a lot and you were struggling in underwater and you were doing all the steel tanks, aluminum tanks tests, all the weights. You needed to set up everything by yourself based on some photos and some 8-hour side mount sidewinder day you had with an instructor in the other side of the world. Girl, you're crazy. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I am, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. I'm going for all of it, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't regret a single thing. And
No,
then
well done. Well done.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a certain badge of honor, I think. I mean, I'm all about getting the training and learning as much as you possibly can. But there's a time, even if you finish a good course, where you get released into the wild, if you like, and you have to go diving on your own without an instructor looking over your shoulder or someone to immediately ask a question of. And I think there's something in the fact that you have to learn elements of it for yourself, you know, and go out and problem solve and figure out what's going on. And I always say to people, like, if you're going through that period where you're post course and you're starting to find that in the water, maybe things aren't as good as you would like them to be, take a lot of video of yourself and have a look at the video, and because the video will show you what's going on. If your cylinder trim's incorrect or if something's not set up properly, you'll be able to see it. It's also a great way to perfect your trim and balance and buoyancy control, and just get someone to just fire a video at you and then review that and just keep iterating around. And if you're able to, I mean, my students are able to reach out to me and ask questions after their course, and that can be positive as well and helping to solve problems. But there's nothing like learning it. Ultimately, it's you that's the one who's going to dive it, and you have to learn it. And sometimes I've said this many times I didn't have any assistance when I finished my course many years ago, and there wasn't very much online. And I spend a lot of time just trying to figure it out. So I still think that was great in terms of my development as a diver. And yeah, like I love the courage that you show and the determination to do it the way you want to do it. I love that.
thank you. And I do remember from past podcast episodes that you were mentioning that you learned to dive side mount in fresh water, then you needed to kind of struggle, go back home, and basically readjust and learn everything to adjust to your own environment.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's part of the entire learning experience in side mount. It's incredible that, I mean, the how variable, any single variable, sometimes you just need to change it a little bit and suddenly you're like, I've been searching for this level of comfort for like 5 or 6 dives ago. Finally I got it.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, yeah. And then you'll have a bit of time out of the water, or you'll change something and you have to do it again. Yeah. I mean, even to this day, I mean, I've been side mount diving for more than 12 years now. And if I have a little break, I'll go back in, and I'm actually in a dry period right now. The weather's been shocking here. And when I say shocking, we're in the end of winter, and the weather, it's just been rainy, you know, and then there'll be beautiful fine days, but it's in the middle of the week, and there's no boats going out, and then on the weekend, like today's Saturday, and it's raining, you know. So it's kind of, I've had a little dry period here, and even myself, I'll get back on the water, and I know just that first descent, I'll be trying to find my absolute trim and my absolute motionless feeling that I get. And it might take the first dive to get that back again, you know. So it's quite extraordinary how that is. I'm sure everyone goes through the same experience, but that's part of it, side mount, you know, and any adjustment. So more undergarments, moving weight around, different equipment, all of those things will be a factor in how you feel in the water.
Yep, I also went through dry periods, let's say a too long surface interval in the beginning of the year here. Weather
Yes.
was super harsh. We were about 2 months without being able to go for significant boat dives. We
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. The sea was too harsh.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know how that feels like. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
it's part of it. It just keeps the passion alive.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I've got my gear completely packed, ready to go right now, because I was supposed to go a couple of Saturdays ago and we got blown off. And I was going to try and go. Well, I can't go today because I'm talking to you, of course, which is extremely important. And then tomorrow, can't go tomorrow either. So, yeah, it'll have to be in the next couple of weeks, I hope. Everything's ready to go, though. So, batteries are charged, scooter's ready to go. My rebreather, I've got a problem with that at the moment, though. So, I'm still trying to solve a small leak on my Sidewinder, which is stopping me from holding it positive. So I'm very frustrated. Spoke to Skander about that too. Is extremely helpful. So I still need to solve that problem to get that back in the water. But anyhow, let's move on. I mean, great to hear about you and your path into and your first experiences with the Sidewinder. I know you then obviously sometime later went on and became a Sidewinder diver. Talk us through your experience as you went from being that first try through to going and doing your Mod 1 course.
So my first experience was in February last year.
Mm-hmm.
I came back home and I was practicing side mount diving on open circuit for almost every single weekend until the end of November last year, when I
Wow.
had my Mod 1 booked with Protec back in Mexico. And I had these exact 9 months, like enough to make a baby. So this 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 will be this will be my the first baby will born, my project. I was on a
Yes.
mission, pushing every single weekend until I feel as proficient as I could, struggling with my sweet dear Atlantic Ocean,
Mm-hmm.
boat diving with side mounts, the only a lonely soul diving side
Mm-hmm.
mount on the boat. Everyone looking like, oh my God, how is she going outside of the boat? What is she going to do this time to go up the stairs?
Mm-hmm.
Is she handing one of the tanks? Or is she handing both? And then I was
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, it depends. It can always be different.
Nice. Love it.
I learned to adjust to every single condition here, seriously. Like,
Well done.
we go on a specific type of boat. I would go like on how do you call? It's like giant foot, like
Giant foot.
giant foot straw, like like when you walk outside of the boat, like
A
just
Bigfoot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You just
Sasquatch. Yeah.
yeah, you just go outside of a boat, like everything already. Your gear, the tanks
Mm-hmm.
are on, everything on. Other situations, I would. This was rare, in fact, but I would
Mm-hmm.
roll over already with the tanks on, because too much waves to be able to put the tanks in place.
Mm-hmm.
Once we are in the water, the like mission is go, go, go. Under, let's go. Down there is safe. Here in the surface is not good.
Yep.
Let's go. So that part was super interesting, however, completely different from Mexico.
Yes. Oh my God, that's right. And I
And
often
also,
wonder sometimes that how some of the cave divers would cope with that sort of thing, because they're just phenomenal. But it's so easy to walk up to a cenote and get in the water and put your gear on. I mean, admittedly, sometimes they've got climbs and everything, so that's a bit different. But yeah, boat diving is a great experience, I think, for side mount divers, and it does teach you to be flexible and to employ techniques subject to the conditions that you're dealing with. And sometimes it can be really easy and sometimes not so easy. And I love hearing what you're saying there, because I know we've done episodes on every aspect of that and talked that through many times. So fantastic that you are demonstrating that yourself now.
yeah, yeah, it was a big challenge. Also, when I understood that, okay, I will need 11-liter steel tanks, so I can just drop all this weight I need to put on my XDEEP stealth wing. I was like, this is 8 kilos on my wing. This is unbearable. This is impossible. This is
Mm-hmm.
much of a hassle. Side mount is not supposed to be like this. I want my wing
Mm-hmm.
to be as light as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Going for steel tanks is the way to go in salt water. So I do
Definitely.
have
Yes.
most of my weight there. And
Yep.
yeah, sure, going for aluminum tanks in fresh water, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Just learn how to adjust to the conditions. And yes, when I was diving side mount, I finally had the chance to go to my favorite wreck and go to
Yay.
explore all the tiny little places I wanted to go. And some of the
Brilliant.
places even going inside. I mean, I had to go by myself because no one else was diving side mount with me at the time. And my buddy was waiting at the entrance saying, I am here. Just
Make
signal
sure
me,
you come back.
make sure you come back. Like, sure, okay, we have time. We organized ourselves so I could explore a little bit without, of course, without pushing too much. Let's be realistic. But
Mm-hmm.
it was amazing. It was so good because every single dive I would be doing and feeling more confident at certain levels. Like this time, I feel I can go in that tiny space right there. The
Yep.
other time, no, this is too much for me. Or today, I'm not in the mood.
Yes.
My head is not 100% there, so I'm
Yep.
not going. I'm skipping it this time. I'm gonna save it
Yes.
for the next weekend and over the next weekend, and building these small little achievements for myself, and all towards this very important objective that was to be able to reach the end of the year and be able to take my mod 1 course in Mexico, because I do want to go to Mexico, not not just to get training, but I want to I want to know as many cenotes in Mexico as I can. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
find it beautiful, absolutely
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
beautiful. And I really I wish I had this goal of going there at least once a year and
Mm-hmm.
keep on knowing more cenotes as the years and as life goes by. I do
Sure.
expect that diving is a hobby that I can do for the rest of my life. So
Mm-hmm.
it's,
Brilliant. Yeah, and it is exactly that. So fantastic. So let's move on to your Mod 1 course. So you've now become very enamored with Mexico and the cenotes. You've now built fabulous experience. And I want to just point out that for everyone listening, that's a really phenomenal way to go about that too. I think that's great role modeling in terms of building your experience, also in knowing when to push, knowing when to pull back. And you've trained for this now, so that's fantastic. So let's go on to your Mod 1 course and how that happened and how you went through that course.
it was extremely useful. It was extremely interesting, and I can also say, sorry, Skanda, a little bit traumatic.
Yeah.
It is very intense
Mm-hmm.
to go through it. My course buddy, he was doing crossover, And it was Sidewinder was about to become his third rebreather.
Right.
So, and for me, this was my entry level into CCR, everything brand new. And also, I was taking the course on a language which is not my mother tongue. So, for that reason, I felt my brain was working, I don't know, like the speed 10 times the normal. So, I could actively translate and build all the information on what I knew, taking notes, like by memory, translating things, trying to introduce and save as much information as possible, and then going in the water. Sure, like you go day 1, day 2, day 3, then things start to make a lot of sense. Then you start having a feel for the unit, and you're like, okay, now I see how this works. Now I see that if I hear this, this is the ADV. If I feel this, if I do that, and things become way more natural. That was the magic of it. I do regret that I didn't have the chance to have a day off during the course, like to have
Yeah.
3 or 4 days of course, then 1 day of rest, and then additional 3 or 4 days to finish.
Yes.
But it was not possible because of my flights and my assigned buddy flights. We needed to do everything during 7 consecutive days. So it was
tough run.
intense. It was tough, I must admit. And also, I do have I call it my lazy left. I have kind of a lazy left here. So with many ascents and descents on a day, one thing is to do it once or twice a day. Other thing is to do it 4 or 5 times in a 3-hour period. At day 4, I needed to go to a Mexican pharmacy, and I got
Yes.
all the heavy stuff I could get.
Yeah. Which is a lot.
I could finish the course. It was like corticosteroid, it was anesthetic, it was drops, it was ibuprofen, anti-inflammatory, everything I could get. It was insane, but it worked. I managed to
Fantastic.
do all my diving, and it was good. The only thing also, besides this, the need, if I would do it over again, that I would make sure I would have 1 day to rest
Yes.
somewhere in the middle of the course. I would also have done it in my own unit, but at the time it was a little bit of it was a rookie kind of negligent thing on my hand. When I signed up for the Mod 1 course, I didn't say immediately to Protect that I was interested on buying a unit. So they thought until very close to course, meaning 3 months before, that I wanted to do it with the rental unit.
Right.
So when I reached out to them and asked, okay, so how is about payment? And they said, payment of what? You're fully paid. You're ready. Just come. I'm like, what about the rebreather? And they're like, what rebreather? Oh my God, okay. A lack of loss of communication here. I would be interested on having a unit.
Yeah.
My God, we might be too late now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's order it, but almost for sure you will not have it ready on time. So you're gonna do it on one of our rental units. You're gonna be just fine. Then you just need to set up your own unit back at home by yourself. It's also good practice for you. And I said, oh yes, indeed it is. So I didn't have the benefit of having an instructor setting up my unit for me. When the unit got here to Portugal, I needed to set it up all by myself again, 3 months after the course. So
yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, I made some changes to mine after my course, but I made sure I took photographs of everything. So, and while I was training with Ed, even when I was doing the build with him, I would take photographs of every step. So I had this photographic record, and I wrote some notes as well. So because otherwise I wasn't confident I would remember when I came back to New Zealand. And of course, I was the only one here with a Sidewinder at the time. I think I still might be, but it's unreal.
Yeah, me too. I did so many videos and photos. I was
Yeah.
constantly asking, can I record this? Can I take a
Mm-hmm.
photo of this? And
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can.
Great job.
Yes, you should do it.
Great job. How did you find the transition from open circuit side mount to the Sidewinder? And I'm thinking about from the perspective of the first time you put yourself under the water. I know you'd had the try dive, but how did you feel in terms of your balance and your ability to dive that first dive on your Mod 1 course?
Well, I didn't feel some of the challenges I heard some people talking about. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel much work of breathing. I felt it quite effortless
Mm-hmm.
for me. Some people, this is common, and people do mention it very often that work of breathing in the Sidewinder is
Mm-hmm.
not as comfortable as other units. I didn't notice
Mm-hmm.
much. And also, I found it extremely intuitive and easy to set because it's everything is mechanical, so little electronics about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also quite safe, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, because in order for you to be able to clean it properly, you do need to tear the entire thing apart.
Mm-hmm.
And this is extremely, extremely good because particularly for divers who are kind of control freaks, then you can check every single thing. And when you go through your checklist, and particularly who people for people who are not big experts into computer electronics circuits, it's really good
Mm-hmm.
to keep it as simple, as minimalistic as possible. And I became very interested on the Sidewinder also because of that, because I wanted
Yep.
a unit that would allow me to maintain it with at least the least complex maintenance possible, and that I
Yep.
could do most of the maintenance by myself in a
Yep.
country where we do not have a Sidewinder instructor or
Mm-hmm.
anyone really close to help you out. And at
Yep.
the time, I didn't know anyone diving Sidewinder in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
I did knew of a couple of Portuguese divers who had a Sidewinder, but they were usually most of the year in living in Mexico
Mm-hmm.
because they have the possibility of working remotely, I think. So I didn't have anyone very close to me to help.
Mm-hmm.
So I was
Yep.
looking for something easy for me to serve as my entry level rebreather. And so
Yep.
far, so good. I'm 30 hours into the unit and I'm loving every bit of it.
Yeah, I've talked about my experience before, but I still was quite surprised how, I mean, it's demanding, right? Going to rebreather diving from open circuit, no question. But I still remember the first time underwater, going straight into trim at Jackson Blue there with Ed, and then swimming into the entrance to the cave there and just hanging out there for a bit and just finding my trim in the unit. And then Ed made me do so many circles just inside the cave entrance there. And the good thing about that was it was a very gradual swim down and then a very, very gradual swim back up. And it was probably about 30 meters in each direction. So this kind of 60-meter circuit that I was swimming. And I'd have to change, probably a change in depth of about 5 or 6 meters in that. And so each time I'd be changing depth. And so I had to manage the loop on every circuit. And I just remember going around and around and around. And while it sounds a bit boring, and I have to admit in my mind I was thinking, how many more circuits do I have to do today? But it was teaching me that, adding to the loop, dumping from the loop, adding to the loop, dumping from the loop, and managing my trim and buoyancy at the same time. And it was fantastic. I mean, from there, God, it was just staggering. We went further into the cave and did a bit more training, did all of the things that you do on the course. And then at the end of the course, Ed and I went cave diving. It was just absolutely brilliant to be able to do that so early into diving a rebreather. And like I was just staggered at how I took to it. And of course, I had the same experience again as I did on my open circuit side mount courses, that I then brought it from the freshwater and came back to saltwater in New Zealand, and we're wreck diving pretty much straight away on it. But it was fantastic. I've had my ups and downs with it, no question, just as anybody would. And I've had a few bailouts, and I've had a few times where I've stripped the unit off and gone side mount open circuit diving. But I must be now getting closer to 200 hours, and having done Mod 2 and Cave CCR now as well, boy, it's my favorite way of diving. And I'm a bit, as I said, I'm a bit frustrated at the moment. I've got a small leak in there somewhere that I can't find, so I've got to solve that problem to get back on it. But absolutely love it. And yeah, congratulations on getting through that course. There are places where the light fades and only the bold keep going, where silence surrounds every breath and every moment matters. This is the world of underwater exploration, the last frontier. It's the world XDEEP was made for. From the ice-covered caves of Scandinavia through to the deep passages of Mexican cenotes to submerged tunnels beneath mountain fortresses, XDEEP gear is trusted wherever precision, durability, and focus decide the outcome. The XDEEP Exploration Support Program exists to back those who go beyond, those who explore to understand, who dive not just for depth, but to document, protect, and inspire. With advanced equipment and meaningful support, XDEEP empowers explorers, scientists, and committed divers who push the boundaries beneath the surface. Exploration begins with a question. Progress begins with action. Lead your path with XDEEP. Discover more at exploration.xdeep.eu. So you finished your Mod 1. You've now taken the Sidewinder back to Portugal. Tell us about your diving at home on the Sidewinder.
Well, now my main goal is also it's to build experience, to feel as comfortable in the unit as I can, and to build ours. One of the best places that many divers go here is the quarry. 90 minutes away from Lisbon, a little bit to north and center of Portugal, and where you have a quarry, you can get like deep. You can go, if you want, like 50, 60 meters in some areas, and in about 40 meters you can find remains of a village that was submerged about 70 years ago. So it's not just average to zero viz and some wood logs and some rocks. You do have something interesting to look for down there, and it's very good for CCR hour building. And it's also good to practice to ascents and descents without the help of cable.
Line.
A line, which is very common when we go open water on a boat, and you have currents, you have waves. So when we need to fulfill our deco stops and safety stop, I mean, let's face it, sometimes just for the sake of pure safety, you need to hold on to it and just wait for the time to go. You have no time to be way too fancy and try to stay on trim, standing still. You just can't afford that luxury. And I do think it's one of my biggest challenges at this point, because I'm used to struggle with some harsh sea conditions. And when I have chance to practice hoovering and proper trim, sometimes my body still has reflexes of like, for sure, some like big current will come and it will literally take me out of here. So I should not stay still, or it is hard to stay still. Surely since Mod 1, this was part of my training. I remember clear as day the moment when Skanda put a line in the cenote, and for us to be able to perform many of the exercises, we needed to be behind the line and in the same depth as the line would indicate. Otherwise, he would just not order us to perform the exercise. We needed to be able to stay still, on trim, correct yourself, and as soon as you're ready, then I will perform the exercise, so then you can repeat and execute properly until you're enoughly proficient to pass the course. It is a challenging, yes, as you mentioned, the ascents and descents here at home. We do have some interesting, challenging dive profiles. If you wish to visit some reefs and walls that we have,
Mm-hmm.
you'll need to go a little crazy sometimes changing depth, and that's not very practical nor easy to do on a rebreather. So you need to be surely extra careful and practice a lot to make
Mm-hmm.
sure you manage all your settings and requests for PPO2 and
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
the loop volume and all of
Yep.
that. Extremely, extremely important. Extremely
Yep.
important. I still have, I would say, a long way to go until I can do my cave training, because
Yes.
I'm also going on a, let's say, a little bit of an unconventional path in that aspect, because I do think when you go into cave diving, the biggest gift of all is time.
Yes.
If you have problems and if you have time,
Mm-hmm.
immediately that will reduce your stress levels to a point that
Yes.
you can actually think and
Mm-hmm.
possibly troubleshoot the problem, and you have time to fix it. And
Yep.
if I want to be there and enjoy the silence, go deeper, go longer, for
Mm-hmm.
me it makes way more sense to go straight into cave after I'm proficient on rebreather. So
Yep.
I
Yeah,
do
I
know,
agree. I agree
yeah,
completely with that, and it is interesting because having been through full cave training in Sidemount's open circuit, and then also doing a crossover with the CDAA in Australia in open circuit, and then going back and getting on the rebreather, and subsequently doing Mod 2 and Cave CCR with Patrick at ProTech. The skills that you do on Cave CCR are very, very similar to what you would do open circuit anyhow. And so I think all of the, you will have already done all of the line work. You certainly do all of the, you're doing, spending a fair amount of time in open circuit bailed out anyhow. And that's very easy for a side mount diver on the Sidewinder as well. So I think that's entirely a great way to go, and you can easily do all of your cave training on your rebreather, and I think that's does give you that benefit. As you said, it's so Ed would reinforce it with us all the time. Time stress, distance stress, gas stress, all of those things go away. And I do find a great, provided, and I'll put a proviso on that, provided that you've calculated your bailout volumes correctly for the dive that you're doing. And I've heard Stratus talk about it in terms of people not calculating bailout correctly and or over pushing the distances that they're traveling based on the bailout that they're carrying, and that's really, really important. But apart from that, you may have heard me talk about a couple of instances where either I've had to bail out or I've spent a bit of time on the wrong side of a restriction, and just having that extra time, knowing that I've got 4 to 6 hours potentially to solve this problem, is just so relaxing. Exactly as you say, and the kind of real life examples of times, or a couple of other times too, where I've had a navigation issue. We had that at the back of Tank Cave, and just the ability to hang there and figure it out, and then solve it and get it right and come out. That was fantastic as well. No, I agree. I'm excited for you for when you can take that next step. And you're right to take your time. I'd done 100 hours when I did my course, and I think that's about the right time. You've had time to get a few things wrong. You've had time to really bed everything in, get very comfortable in the unit, and then that's a great time to go and look at Cave CCR and Mod 2 for that matter.
thank you. I really appreciate. I learned so much from many of the podcast episodes
Mm-hmm.
that
Thank you.
I was listening over the time, like getting all my inspiration and getting prepared to do my mod 1, and then
Mm-hmm.
proceed slow,
Yep.
building hours until the moment I feel that I might be ready to take a
Yeah.
case. And most people here at home, they do support me. However, they also agree that it's non-conventional. Most people do get their open circuit cave training first. And then eventually, years after, they do get a rebreather, and then they go
Hmm.
inside the cave and get rebreather cave
Hmm.
training. I
Yep.
just decided that I wanted to do slightly different way, and
Hmm.
I'm willing to take my time, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, and the caves aren't going anywhere. And the other thing too, I mean, obviously I've sort of given you my perspective, but you can always go back to ProTech and talk to them. I mean, Skander's left there now; he's out on his own, but you can always go and chat to Skander as well if you wish to train with him, and they would give you exactly their perspective and advice on it as well, and whether they agree with what I've said or not. I would certainly go by that, especially if you're going to train with them. Yeah, look, that sounds fantastic. And look, we've spent so much time on your diving, and we were supposed to be talking about your work at Dan and dentistry and everything. But what a great story! And I'm so pleased that Speaking Sidemount supported you. And it is interesting that like you're diving, there is a way of diving that Speaking Side Mount kind of is going down with open circuit side mount and the Sidewinder. And so anyone who wants to go down that path, there's so many episodes now where I've talked to other Sidewinder divers and open circuit side mount divers where there's gold in there at every step of the way. So yeah, thank you for your support and thank you for listening. Let's talk about dentistry. What made you want to be a dentist?
Okay, I wasn't expecting that question.
I know you weren't. I wanted to throw that one in. That's my secret one for you.
Well, just I wasn't sure when I was about to apply to university, but I had a very good relationship with my dentist.
Mm-hmm.
She was amazing, and because I showed some interest, she was willing to explain me stuff, and I found
Mm-hmm.
it extremely fascinating. And then looking at the office and the things that were there and the type of materials she would use, the protocols for all the materials, and also the beautiful part of it, of
Mm-hmm.
taking care of someone's health and
Mm-hmm.
fixing things. And I just thought this could be a interesting career for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
it is. I find dentistry very interesting because, I mean, as a human being, I guess people should know that they should take care of their teeth from the beginning. But of course, when you don't, or if you have an issue, it's actually pretty bad. I mean, like, dental pain, there's almost nothing else like it. And so obviously, you'll go to the dentist if you have pain in the tooth or whatever. But I think a lot of people are unaware of the really strong relationship between your dental health and your overall health, and how important it is to take care of your teeth and important it is to go and see your dentist regularly. So it is I think it's a part of medicine that we all should rely on more deeply than I think many do. And no, fantastic. So tell us a little bit about, you've obviously working with Dan now, and you're both a representative for Europe, but also you're a diving medical officer for dentistry. Tell us about how your relationship with Dan came about.
Well, the idea did came up when I was diving. So
Mm-hmm.
I was on a boat, and then I did my dive with my assigned buddy. When I finished the dive, and when I was back on the boat, the skipper approached me. He knew me, and he said, "Look, would you mind talking to that boy over there, because he couldn't do his dive because he had a dental problem. He thinks it's a dental problem, because he needed to call the dive during descent." So,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, "So he didn't go?" And they said, "No, he didn't go." "So you're a dentist, right? Could you go talk to him to see if he's okay?" I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my God, it's been 1 hour. He looks okay." So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the boy. I talked to him, and he told me, I felt like a very strong pain in my jaw when I was going down. Honestly, the only thing I could think of is that I had a wisdom tooth extracted
Mm-hmm.
weeks ago, but I felt fine. And my dentist told me, "Look, if you feel good to practice sports, then you can dive."
Mm-hmm.
But I will never forget the words he used to describe it. He said, "It felt like a tennis ball, like covered in nails, pulsating inside my jaw." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. How do you feel right now?" And He's like, I'm good. Now I'm good. But why did this happen? And then I was like, actually, I have an idea why, but I don't know. And most of it, I went back home thinking about this, and
Mm-hmm.
there is not enough information. I mean, when you go online, you will find then a lot currently these days. But
Mm-hmm.
us as healthcare professionals, dentists, we don't get any specific training on how to approach diver patients. Unless you're
Mm-hmm.
trained as a dentist for the Navy, almost for
Mm-hmm.
sure, then things are approached differently during our basic training in university. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I I knew zero to nothing. I only about the subject, and I was a dentist for 8 years at the time, and uh, and I was thinking, this is major, this is significant, this is
Mm-hmm.
something that directly relates my my work field with diving, and I I wish I could know more. I want to know more, and I want to be able to help people preventing this type of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I reached out to Dan, sent them a long email and a letter of basically explaining what happened and telling them I would be interested on learning more and collaborating. And they replied me some weeks after saying that this could be the beginning of an interesting collaboration because it's relevant to have a diving medical officer that is specialized on the field of dentistry, and it
Mm-hmm.
should be someone that, and because this is a basic requirement for most Dan Europe workers, which is you might not be a super regular dive every weekend diver, but you have to be passionate about diving. That you have to be.
Sure.
So you can be a part of the foundation. Then the proposal, it happened, and then we started collaborating since June last year. I do remote support for mostly non-emergency cases, done
Mm-hmm.
Europe members that want counseling and support about dental emergencies or the implication of dental treatments with diving activity, particularly diving professionals, which are the ones that are most concerned many of the times, because most frequent question is something like, let's give an example. I broke a tooth and I need to have a crown. My dentist explained me the procedure and how many appointments it would take, but I want to know from when exactly in the procedure, because it will take several appointments, how when can I dive? Is it safe to
Mm-hmm.
dive? Or I had a tooth extracted. When is it safe to dive? Or even some more specific situation, like I was holding the mouthpiece, and then suddenly I think I did some over. I chewed it too hard or something, and one of my teeth cracked. What
Mm-hmm.
happened? What can I do to prevent this from happening again? And then based on that, I will be on the other side replying. If you're a Dan Europe member, I will
Mm-hmm.
be on this side helping you out, providing a report and some specific customized advice
Mm-hmm.
from a dentist diver to a diver that needs help.
Yeah,
So
fantastic, fantastic. I know
it's
many of us. Can't remember. I think I might have experienced this myself years ago, but I know my son did during a dive when he was with us in Malta, and I also think, yeah. Look, I mean, many people experience a tooth squeeze. You know, where you're descending or ascending, one or the other, and you get a very sharp pain. And generally, the advice is you need to go and see your dentist the next day or the same day. You probably have a cavity. What would your general advice be for someone who's experiencing or has experienced a tooth squeeze?
when you say tooth squeeze, it would mean a toothache, like the you
Yeah,
feel like.
really sharp pain on ascent or descent.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because usually in terms of pain, it can go, barodontalgia can manifest itself on very different ways. It can go from a beating, dull pain to a
Yes.
sharp, penetrating pain.
Mm-hmm.
It can be on ascent or descent, but usually some studies do show that just a simple small cavity would not theoretically be responsible for a tooth squeeze. However, what is the most common in terms of experiencing that type of pain or discomfort is to have poor quality dental work or old fillings. Because old fillings, in fact, they start to leak slowly because the materials start deteriorating. It's inorganic, some chemical materials. They will
Mm-hmm.
start slowly to detach from the tooth, and there then bacteria will be able to spread between the filling and the tooth structure, and this
Mm-hmm.
will create some empty spaces. And sure, we know what those areas, how they can behave when we
Mm-hmm.
change ambient pressure, which is what
Mm-hmm.
happens during diving every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible that if you have a very old filling on a tooth or a poorly made filling, then it can detach from the tooth during the dive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extremely important that you have checks regularly and make sure that you visit a dentist that you trust and
Mm-hmm.
that has good references. And also make sure you share with your dentist that you're a diver, at least despite that specific dentist might not have training or very deep knowledge about how diving can interfere with dental treatment. At least give your dentist the chance to go home and search, because there's a lot of things available in terms of literature, lots of good studies. There could be more. There is lots of space for this scientific field to grow. And then maybe the dentist can help you better as a diver, because most patients, they do receive recommendations in terms of practicing sports. That is common. However, to receive a recommendation of, yes, okay, so if you feel good enough to run for 1 hour, then maybe you're good to dive. Not necessarily. One thing is to have a simple 30 to 40-minute dental procedure, like scaling, like a dental cleaning, let's say, or a
Mm-hmm.
small filling. Other completely different thing is to have an impacted wisdom tooth extracted.
Mm-hmm.
That is totally different, because on one of the cases, if the treatment is well performed, let's say a simple filling, you can dive the day after.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. However, if you have a complex impacted wisdom tooth extracted, first at least you need to give it a time to give it the time for a wound closure
Mm-hmm.
and to go back to the dentist to remove the sutures.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that after those 10 to 15 days, you already feel quite good. But because of the complexity of the procedure and the time you had to have your mouth wide open for the surgery to happen, then you get some jaw pain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult to open and close their mouth and even to hold the mouthpiece. If if this type of situation happens, of course, and if you sign up for a long dive, let's say you plan with your buddies to do a 3 hour dive on a rebreather, it's surely not comfortable that you're unable to hold the mouthpiece without feeling discomfort. And surely what we can never forget is that soft tissues in our mouth, they heal very quickly, let's say 2 weeks. However, new bone in the area where the impacted tooth used to be, it might take 6 to 8 weeks to be fully formed.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, you might actually have an empty socket inside of your lower jaw. And that thing can contract and expand
Yes.
upon pressure changes. And I never
Right.
experienced such a thing, but like that boy told me years ago, if it's a tennis ball that like pulsates with nails like sharp everywhere, I definitely wouldn't feel safe, and this would endanger the dive. It's really something to
Yeah. In terms of dentistry and Dan, is there information available on the Dan website in terms of general advice that people can review?
well, at this point there are some interesting articles on the Dan website. If you search specifically Dan Wisdom Tooth, you will find some good resources and reliable information to read about. And
Yep.
also, something that we try to do is, even if someone doesn't have a Dan insurance, if divers do reach out to us asking for help, it's always our priority to try to help them. So if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out and we
Mm-hmm.
will try to answer and help as much as we can.
Yeah, and I don't think that's certainly not an excuse not to have Dan insurance, though. I don't think certainly we don't need it so much here in New Zealand because we're covered by the government. But
Yeah, in Portugal,
if I'm traveling, there's no way that I would not have Dan insurance.
yeah, in Portugal, actually, we do also face a similar situation. Diving insurance, it's not mandatory because the government assures rescue. The hyperbaric chamber treatment, that's a different story. So surely having done support, it helps a lot.
Yeah,
Getting, if you need an hyperbaric chamber, reaching that chamber as effectively and as soon as possible. It's indeed very significant if you're away.
yeah,
Oh, and
yeah,
I,
for
I
sure.
remember also something important that it was mentioned by also in some of my cases during this year. Sometimes there are teeth, like some type of barodontalgia, meaning a toothache caused by pressure changes,
Mm-hmm.
that the cause, it's not the teeth. So it's indirect barodontalgia, which means it can be a referred pain on teeth. People do think it's a dental problem, but in fact, it can be a sinus problem.
Right.
This is also something to be aware of because our upper molars, the roots of the teeth, are very frequently related with our maxillary sinuses, these cavities that we have right next to our nose. And if we do have a history of sinus problems or infections, if we don't solve that, it might cause irradiated pain to our teeth and
Mm-hmm.
also middle ear problems. It can also display as toothache.
Right.
It's extremely interesting and something very very relevant to be aware of.
Sure, sure. And yeah, and there isn't a diver that hasn't had a sinus issue. And I can imagine that a lot of the nerves run very close to each other through our skull there. So yeah, fantastic. Is there anything else in terms of dentistry that I haven't asked you that you think is relevant to our audience?
Oh yeah, for sure. Um, in terms of the mouthpiece, something that I also got reports and I find it quite interesting to mention here is most of us, let's say, studies do show that one on every three persons will have temporomandibular disorders, also related to bruxism, like day clenching or night grinding during their lifetime. And if you have something, and if you suffer from something like that, and if you're a diver, it's very important that the type of mouthpiece you have, it's also the right fit for you. And also, if you're a clencher, let's say you're used to during the day, if you're focused on something, you're constantly clenching. For sure, your muscles are way more developed and you're able to exert way more pressure in your mouthpiece. So it's interesting that if divers can select the type of mouthpiece that will not be too soft, too flexible, because this will overstimulate their clenching or chewing during the dive. And this is also one of the possible causes for headaches reported after diving, when
Interesting.
any other explanations would suffice, like dehydration, no other situation to report.
Two or something. Yep.
So if you're like 1, 2, 3 hours clenching on a mouthpiece, all your muscles, all our muscles here are connected, and the temporomandibular joints. And also these muscles in this area right here between the lower jaw and under our eyes, they are also directly connected to our forehead and our temporal area. So this can cause significant headaches after a dive,
Right.
because you were clenching on the mouthpiece.
So if you happen to be a person who has this trait, let's call it, what would your advice for them be?
Well, I do know that there is a possibility, and there are some manufacturers that provides the option of doing a custom-made mouthpiece. It's not very common, and for sure not as affordable as other as conventional mouthpiece that can be found in the market. But since it's not a very expensive part of the gear, it's interesting if you can try some different ones and see which one would fit you best. I myself had an interesting dental related diving situation in my last trip. I was in Gozo diving in July last, like less than 3 weeks ago. I was there, and it was the first time I was doing long, I can consider very long dives. For me, a 3-hour dive is long, is significant.
Yes.
And particularly if it's done on consecutive days, I did find out that the mouthpiece that was included in my Sidewinder was okay for me to use on like a 1 weekend, 1 hour, 90-minute dive. But after 3 days of long dives in Gozo, I did earn myself a sore spot under my upper lip. And I find out that way that the mouthpiece was not the right one for me. So fortunately, my dive guide, big savior, Yvonne Press. Yvonne, if you're listening, thank you for much for your really small, really nice, girly mouthpiece that saved the rest of my dive trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you call it a girly mouthpiece, because I've changed the Sidewinder mouthpiece to an Apex mouthpiece, which is much smaller and might even be the girly one that you got given. So I think I might be using the same one. And maybe I've just always loved those Apex mouthpieces. So I've always had them on my open circuit regulators. And so I just put one on the Sidewinder as well. And I do find it great. Just one thing with the Sidewinder as well, I have had experiences where if you don't have the DSV rotated to the correct position, I'll often get a bit of pressure on my lower gum from the mouthpiece. And so it's really important that you have it aligned correctly and that you adjust that. And yeah, that's bothered me a few times over my times diving the Sidewinder. And finally, I think I tend to, it hasn't happened for a while. I think I've solved it now by making sure I have the alignment of the DSV correct when I build the unit. But that's something that has bothered me with mouthpieces.
Yeah. It happened to me once also, Steve, that I felt it like hurting my lower lip, and the alignment was not correct. It was easy to fix, but then this other issue showed up after consecutive days, long dives. I found out about the mouthpiece, and gladly it was easy to solve.
Yeah, well, hi to Yvonne, and yeah, and I was aware. Obviously, she's been in Gozo for a while now, having moved there from Bali, and Yeah, boy, I'd love to get back there sometime. It's Europe feels like such a long way away right now from New Zealand. It's quite weird. Quite a long time, we'd travel up to Europe, and it was fantastic. But the New Zealand dollar, given what's happening in the world right now, our dollar is like a peso now. So euros are very expensive for us. So are US dollars. And so we live very comfortably down here, but as soon as you travel outside, Australia's okay. But as soon as you go to anywhere, the States, North America, or Europe, things get really expensive for us now.
Yeah, it's in fact it's expensive. Euro is it's a very strong currency. Even for
Yeah,
us in Portugal, we do consider that everything is expensive here for us.
yeah. Well, to give you an idea, it's to the British pound, the New Zealand dollar is 50 pence. So we're kind of 2 to 1 to the pound, and we're about 1.6 New Zealand dollars to the euro, I think, at the moment. So it's not far off double, I guess, or 1.5 times, and we're not so different to the US dollar as well. So, yeah, I mean, you just have to suck it up if you're going to go and just say it's going to cost what it's going to cost. But it's a bit of a barrier right now, and I've been wanting to come back, and my wife wants to go to Greece as well, and so there's a few places we haven't been. So we'll make it happen, but it's just certainly the way things are at the moment with exchange rates, a little bit of a barrier, but I'll get there. I want to come to Portugal too. You talked a little bit about Portuguese diving, and you talked about the caves. You haven't quite got there yet, but I wasn't aware of caves in Portugal. Whereabouts are they?
Yeah. So in terms of caves, there are about, well, I will say an approximate number. It's 10. Let's consider it
Mm-hmm.
10 diveable caves
Mm-hmm.
that can be visited for recreational fun cave diving, as long as you have a buddy, and if you know the cave. Most of
Mm-hmm.
those caves, from what I know, they do have line. The most frequent ones to visit are Alviela and Almonda. There are some other known ones. I can mention the names: Pena, Olho de Mira, and Quebrada, among others, from those
Mm-hmm.
10 or 11 diveable caves in the country. In
Wow.
terms of exploration, currently, Alviela is at 18,000 flooded galleries to explore,
Wow.
and
Wow.
so far maximum 215 meters depth, which
Wow.
is extremely, like, this is extreme diving. I don't
Yes.
classify it as cave diving anymore. It's almost,
No.
it's extreme. And
Yes.
we do have cave exploration teams here that, sure, it's let's face it, not everyone goes to those 250 meters. There is someone that goes, and then a big support team behind all of it. And
Correct. Yes.
this is the reality. Also, we do
Mm-hmm.
have Almonda Cave, 20,000 flooded galleries to explore,
Wow.
100-meter depth
Mm-hmm.
maximum so far, according to what I know. And in one of the areas, they have reached recently 195 meters
Wow.
in this Almonda cave. It's
Yep.
it's fantastic. It's really amazing. Completely different from Mexican cenotes,
Mm-hmm.
though. I do think maybe more similar to other European caves,
Yeah,
like
maybe similar to
Sardinia
France and
and
yeah.
south of France.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah. Less
yes.
formations. Sardinia is quite interesting because, and of course, most people will be aware that the reason formations exist is that the caves have been dry at some period in their life through various ice ages and so on. And so that's the reason the formations form. And many of the caves in Europe have, in fact, never been dry. So they've always been flooded as they've formed. And so, therefore, no formations. But they're still beautiful in their own right. Diving Sardinia is interesting because most of the diveable parts don't have formations. There are some, but there's not that many. But you can dive into the caves and then get out of the water in some of the more like sump diving. And then there are some absolutely magnificent formations in the dry sections of the caves or the current dry sections. that are at least as beautiful as anything I've seen in the water. So yeah, that's quite interesting for there. And I know in France, although I've never dived there or haven't yet, in regions like the Lot and Rossel and so on, that again, beautiful, beautiful caves, but no formations.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the moment I can go in those caves with my Sidewinder.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that's in your future. And we are back. Hey, Anna, how are you doing this morning? Or this evening for you, in fact?
I'm very good, Steve. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Now let's come clean. You and I talked about this off mic. We forgot, and I'm going to blame myself because I had a huge list of questions to ask you, and I kind of jumped off script a little bit. But we missed some things yesterday that we wanted to cover in this interview. Some really important things about dentistry, and some really important things about you as well. But in the meantime, like I've been sitting at home in the rain here in New Zealand, but you've been out for an amazing dive. So tell us a little bit about how you went today in the dive that you've just done.
Oh yeah, it actually it was amazing, the dive itself. Let's be realistic, because it was a boat dive and we had to share the boat with some recreational divers, diving on a single tank with a 15-liter nitrox.
Yes.
So we did know from the beginning, okay, you guys on rebreathers, you'll go underwater first, because otherwise the other guys will finish the dive earlier. So
Yep.
they will just come to the boat and they will just be here feeling seasick for like 15,
Yeah.
20, 30
Yeah.
minutes,
Yeah.
whatever. So we were 3 of us on rebreathers and other 4 divers on open circuit. So we went for it. We even had the chance today. It overcome my expectations in several aspects. One of the best ones was that we did encounter dolphins when we were
Wow.
approaching
That's
the
cool.
dive site, which it's not all the time, but let's say 40% of the times we go there, and particularly when we don't have too much waves and current. And they were kind of escorting us to the dive site. It was actually beautiful. I loved it. I was about to reach
Yep.
my GoPro to take like a cute video of it, but then
Yep.
our dive guide at the boat, she was already like on top of like in the front of the boat, just recording. And I was like, oh, I'm just gonna take the chance of enjoying this, that I
Yes.
literally feel like being escorted to the dive site, and I'm just
Yeah.
going to enjoy it and not even record the thing. So we got there. We went down to River Gurara, the shipwreck, to the part that is sunk to approximately 25 meters depth. And I think I went there. I don't want to over exaggerate it, but at least 30 times. So 30.
Right. Right.
And I've never encountered such a huge octopus before. Because octopus, maybe you have seen that movie, the one,
Yes.
the Oscar, like my Octopus Teacher.
Yes.
Okay. And then I think it was in South Africa, I think.
Correct. Yes, that's right.
It really inspired me when I went on a dive trip by myself to Costa Rica, and I watched the movie and I thought, this is absolutely beautiful. And today I felt something so similar to what I experienced when I was watching that movie, because
Yeah.
it was a huge one. But a huge one that I've encountered octopuses before, but that one was not afraid. It was so big, so full of itself, that he would literally. I'm saying it's a he. I'm unsure of the gender of the
From
octopus, but he was just showing up and just showing off, literally showing off. Like, look at me. And because we were on the rebreathers, we do have the privilege of
yes.
getting closer and closer. And then I just push out of the GoPro. Okay, let's go for a small video there. And then it starts changing color. because they
Oh,
do
amazing.
change
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
to mix with the environment. And then you become shy. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going out of this. Okay, so he tucked in inside of a little hole, he disappeared. And then we
Mm-hmm.
went on our dive, and
Yeah.
it showed up the same octopus 3 times after.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Oh, they do have their own personality. It's
Yeah.
insane. And then he
Yeah, and
was,
they appear to be so intelligent as well. I mean, obviously, the great thing about having encounters like that is it was on the terms of the marine animal, not our terms, which is exactly how it should be done. And yeah, the fact that it kept coming back, it was clearly finding you very interesting part of its day as well, I guess.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, look, let's get on with this. You sent me a message after our great interview yesterday, and we'd missed a few things, and I was sort of aware that we'd skimmed over some of our questions. So I think the first thing, based on what you sent through to me, was that you're not a general dentist, you're a prosthodontist. And I'm quite proud of myself for pronouncing that. I hope I got it right. Can you explain exactly what a prosthodontist does?
Okay. To start, I'm pretty happy that you don't know what a prosthodontist is. It actually means that you don't need one. And I'm happy with that because we do take action if we are considering very complex cases to be very like to simple, plain. We do the crown, bridge work, and implant supported restorations, mostly fixed full implant supported. So, like extreme cases of failing or lost dentition, we do take
Right.
action. Usually pairing up, teaming up with an oral surgeon or a
Mm-hmm.
maxillofacial surgeon. So this is my field of expertise and something I've been noticing over time. And it's very common for me to recommend to my patients that when I do take final impressions to order the ceramic work, because when our teeth are average to severely damaged to a point that we do need ceramic caps or veneers to restore those teeth, I wish I had the chance to have a ceramic technician in a lab right next to me, right prepared to fabricate those ceramic restorations for me in a matter of 1 or 2 hours. Unfortunately, ceramic restorations, the ones that are extremely complex and made to restore teeth to its full function and aesthetics, they do take several hours or days to be built properly. And during those days that I need to wait for the ceramic crown, bridge, or veneer work to be built, I do need to place on my patients temporary restorations. And it is extremely important that after I read some articles and I started to search a little bit about the subject, and when I started to collaborate with Down Europe and getting inquiries from some of our members about particular situations, let's give you a very specific example like your dentist tells you, okay, you broke your tooth, severely damaged, you do need a root canal, and you need a ceramic cap to cover and protect your tooth. Otherwise, it's going to break in little pieces. It's not strong enough to hold. But if you do have a ceramic cap covering it, it will last for decades. So all good. However, that ceramic cap, it might take 1 or 2 weeks to be fabricated and delivered to you. And in the meantime, I do need to place temporary restorations over the teeth. Being front or posterior teeth, I always face the same challenge, which is I need to stabilize those temporary restorations with a temporary cement. And temporary cements, by the word, you can immediately understand that is something that is supposed to be temporary. So
Mm-hmm.
it is easy for the dentist to remove. It is enoughly resistant to allow the patient to chew and to have normal, let's say, social. You can smile with the temporary veneers or caps. You can chew, just try to avoid very hard food. However, in relation, when we try to correlate this type of dental treatments with technical diving, what matters is when we use temporary cements to stabilize temporary restorations, particularly if we are planning on doing some complex technical dives and breathing gas mixtures that do contain helium, we should be aware that according to research and studies published, helium, because of the very low density of its molecules, it's highly likely to penetrate this temporary layer of cement
Right.
and potentially dislodge these temporary restorations inside our mouth when we are
Yep.
underwater.
Yep.
So I would like everyone to that is hearing this podcast that if you're undergoing any type of treatment that your dentist tells you, okay, you have a temporary cap or temporary veneers placed on top of your teeth. This will take just a week, you know. So today is Monday. Next Monday, you'll have your ceramics bonded, and then 24 hours after, you're good to go. However,
Right.
during that weekend, in between those 2 Mondays, well, maybe it might be advisable not to dive, particularly if you're breathing gas mixtures that contain helium, because these low density molecules, they will penetrate the layer of temporary cement way easier, and they can dislodge the restorations. And then let's imagine that something happens. Let's go crazy. You feel something moving inside of your mouth, right? You're on your loop or like wearing your regulator, and you have, let's say, if you don't bail out or if you don't remove your regulator, you have two options. Or you try to keep the thing in place, or you swallow it. Eventually, when you try to swallow it, if you're too nervous, you might even aspirate it. So
Right.
it's a life-threatening situation. Or if you're a really cool head person, maybe you're like, okay, let's imagine, loop. I bail out. I go on my necklace. I put on my regulator, like something. Okay, I'm gonna spit something out, and you have the temporary crown, and you put the regulator out, and okay, now I do decide if I throw this thing away at the sea, which I shouldn't, or if I keep it and I will deliver it to my dentist the next Monday. Say I'm diving and it's Saturday. Maybe he needs it. I don't know. And then I'm going back to my loop. There we go. And I do proceed with my dive. Or you get really stressed out and something happens and you're unable to accomplish your decompression mandatory obligations, or you might aspirate the temporary filling. So just be aware that if something like this, if you are undergoing temporary restoration procedure at your dentist, just try to avoid very deep, technical, complex, long diving, because there are some risks involved indeed.
Sure. And it sounds to me like it would just be good general advice not to dive for that week while you're undergoing that treatment, and just take a break and then get back in. I mean, what is it that's so important that would overcome that risk that you're talking about right now? I mean, I have you say that this temporary filling or crown might dislodge, but I have heard, I think it was Tom Steiner told me about an explosive event where, I'm pretty sure it was him, but it was either him or someone he knew, where the tooth actually exploded during an ascent, I think so.
Yeah, I do believe, and it's described in the literature. The name in Latin is Barodontocrexis.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
weird, I know, but
yeah,
translating is tooth explosion. Like,
sure.
this is
Sure.
extreme,
No doubt to be avoided, right?
sure to be avoided. Yes, indeed.
Awesome.
Fortunately rare. So let's try to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Now, I think the other thing we missed was obviously medications in diving is something that we need to be very aware of in general, but there are medications that are prescribed during dental treatment as well. What sort of things should we be thinking about with medications commonly prescribed in dentistry?
it is very common to prescribe medication, sometimes just to relieve pain before treatment, or also to be able to manage patients' pain while they are waiting for their appointment or in between sessions. So, what I would like people that are listening to this to be aware of is, in case any of the medications that you feel that you should take, because we do self-medicate, let's be realistic. In Europe, this is quite common. And if we do experience a toothache, which is extremely annoying, as we know, we might feel like, okay, next weekend I'm diving, I have a toothache, I already scheduled up an appointment with my dentist. However, this isn't too serious, but I just want to make sure that I don't feel absolutely anything during my dive. I've been planning this dive with my buddies for weeks, so I really don't want to miss it. So you go heavy on the meds. So, and in case the medication that you decide to take, the painkillers specifically, because antibiotics, according to studies, they can be disregarded at this point. And the good thing is that it's not as easy to get antibiotic medication for self-medicating. So that's good. You always need to go
Yes.
to a professional to get antibiotics. And you should always only take it if you really need it. But if you
Yes.
do need painkillers to relieve pain, to manage pain, if any of the medication that you're taking includes oxycodone or codeine, specifically the opioid derived medication, this will enhance any chance of nitrogen induced narcosis. So, in an extreme case that you do experience nitrogen narcosis, and maybe if you tell yourself, oh, I never experienced anything like that, I don't think I'm highly susceptible to it, just be aware of, if you're just taking those pills just to relieve your toothache and then you're going to the dentist like 2 or 3 days after, you might have moderate to severe narcotic episode because you're on those meds. So
Sure.
before going to dive under the effect of such medication, think twice, please.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, good advice in general, and it's awesome that you brought up nitrogen narcosis, because I am one of those people who, I mean, you cannot say that you do not experience it. You definitely do, but I don't notice it, and that's quite insidious. I think the fact that, you know, for people like me who I have done some deep air diving, and yeah, I mean, at the time, I feel great. I will say this, I do have great recollection of those dives. So it's not that my memory necessarily is affected, but there's no doubt that motor skills, etc., cannot and will not be as good as they should be if you're on the correct gases for a deeper dive, i.e. adding helium. And so, yeah, there's, and one thing Tom Steiner, again, my mentor, as I was coming through tech diving training and beginning as a tech diving instructor, was, you know, never ever push the limits on that and always breathe the right gases. And he was extremely strict on that. And he was that way for a good reason. You know, if you do have a problem, your ability to respond to that problem is based on your mental capacity at the time. And if you are in some way inhibited there, then that could have a very bad outcome. And look, who wants to go there? So why would you even bother? Yeah, great advice. Is there anything else that you need to... Now, I'm very conscious that I missed some things yesterday. So is there anything else that we need to cover in the dentistry area in terms of dentistry and diving?
These are extremely important. And also, I would like everyone to be particularly aware that if you're a diver, just please, even if you have been visiting your dentist and if you know and trust your dentist for many, many, many years, both you and your family, just make sure you inform your dentist that you're a diver, so you can have like customized treatments, and they do understand, and let them know, let's say indirectly, it's very
Sure.
important that you have the highest standard of care as a diver. because it's the pressure changes not something normal at all for most people to experience. And even people that do say, yes, I totally know what is that to have toothache when you change pressure, because every time I take a flight to go on a vacation somewhere, sometimes I do feel the tooth squeeze, and it's something indeed relevant. So, and a plane is a pressurized environment.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you're going underwater, deep and deep and deep. This is totally unpressurized environment. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever can be wrong, wherever could be wrong, might go wrong. So just
Yep.
beware of that.
Sure. Just referring back to Dan now, I'm sure, like a lot of doctors, many dentists are relatively unfamiliar with diving medicine and what needs to be considered. Are there resources available to them that they can refer to?
Yes, for sure they can reach to them, specifically in our case as European territory. I
Mm-hmm.
was reached about like some months ago by some postgrad students and also
Mm-hmm.
by some doctors asking for some specific counseling, and
Mm-hmm.
we are able to help those professionals, even if they are not directly related to them, because this is a type of compromise that we try to assume and accomplish and deliver, which is we do try to help everyone, even
Yes.
people that are not DUN members and
Mm-hmm.
are not diving. And if you need
Mm-hmm.
help, we will try to help you. Surely in a different setup and a different emergency level, as if you need an hyperbaric chamber, but for sure
Right.
we will try to counsel and guide you towards the right references. Imagine, let's say, if it would be a doctor, we can even refer you some and send you some good articles that the
Mm-hmm.
doctors take a look at, and be immediately after like 5 to 10 pages of a scientific article to be way more informed on
Yes.
things that are scientifically based, that they can transfer to their practice and provide that information and care to their patients in a more supported way.
Well, that's amazing. And now, yesterday, I think, and I don't know if we spoke on mic about it, but you're going back to do some study. Is that something that you'd want to have a quick talk about?
Well, I wish I knew a lot about it at this point. I just
Right.
know that I was accepted, and I know it's a 2 year program.
Yes.
And I do hope that I am able to work during the time I'm taking that second master degree. I do think it's possible, and I hope so. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a little of a push, but the thing that really interested me the most was the chance of doing research and
Right.
to get to go deep in the area of how hyperbaric chambers work, how diving physiology works on every single aspect and level. I'm extremely curious, and it makes me extremely happy to be able to have this opportunity of living a little more this geek part of diving.
Yes. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. And I've spoken to many, many guests who've been able to combine their careers with diving. And you're just another example of that, both from the dentistry point of view and now with your ongoing master's degree study into hyperbaric medicine. It's fantastic to be able to do that. I think the connection as a diver, and I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, for instance, here in New Zealand, we have to do dive medicals as dive professionals every 5 years, and I'm due for my next one this year. My dive physician has dived before, but he's not actually a full-on or nor technical diver. And that's quite common. They've just done an extra course and they're able to do the medicals for us. But when you talk to the guys actually in that community with the Simon Mitchells and Xavier Hunter and the others here in New Zealand, it's just amazing for them as full-on technical divers to be able to also combine their academic careers along those lines as well. And so, that's fantastic. I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have we done it this time?
Yes, I think so.
Because I'm sitting here very, not that I'm not happy to do this morning, but I don't know if you know rugby very well, but the All Blacks are playing Argentina this morning on New Zealand time. And so that's
a huge team there.
So that's happening in about an hour. So I'm about to go and do my preparation for the game now. So it's very big to us with us here in New Zealand. So really amazing to catch you again. And look, thank you so much for sharing with us. I learned a lot about diving dentistry, and also it was great to learn more about you and your diving personally, and especially to hear about your dive yesterday. That was amazing. So thanks so much, Anna. And we look forward to seeing you progress your career, and perhaps after you've done the hyperbaric medicine master's degree, we can get you back on and learn a bit more about what you've learned in that.
Okay, let's go for it. I really want to talk let's do a 3 talk with Professor Simon Mitchell.
I'm sure he'd be up with that. I haven't seen him for a little while now. He and I talked about going for a dive, and we haven't been able to do that. He's extremely busy, and as you probably know, he's big on the speaking circuit as well. I think he's been to dive talks a few times, and great guy, great, absolute passionate speaker, awesome to listen to, and a great communicator in diving medicine. So, yeah, let's see if we can do that. I'll do my best.
Thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
You've been listening to Speaking Sidemount from www.sidemountpros.com. If you like the podcast and would like to support the show, then why not become a patron of Speaking Sidemount? For as little as $5 per month, you can become a part of the Speaking Sidemount team, get exclusive early access to all of the episodes, and help us to deliver the very best Sidemount, cave, and technical dive content available. Just go to www.patreon.com/speakingsidemount for all of the details. The address is also on our Facebook page, listed in the podcast notes. Thanks again, and we look forward to you joining us for our next episode of Speaking Sidemount.